the Trail of Tears, an ethnic cleansing and forced displacement of over 60,000 natives by their own government and their own land. Now, we may think that this is an obsolete process, but no. Today, we will talk about the modern-day Trail of Tears. Today, we will talk about gentrification. The Urban Displacement Project, a policy research group at UC Berkeley, defines it as a process of neighborhood change that includes economic change in a historically disinvested neighborhood, as well as demographic change, not only in terms of income level, but also in terms of racial makeup or educational level of residents. Now, as a local to Charleston, South Carolina, an employee of the historic Charleston Foundation, I've seen gentrification happening to locals in my neighborhood, particularly in historically African-American communities like those of Mosquito Beach and Gadsden Creek. So we need to understand that gentrification is a vastly negative process and needs to be relieved. So today, we will walk through the problems of gentrification, the causes, and the solutions. So first, we need to walk through the main causes of gentrification, which include forced displacement and the cultural erosion of areas. The gentrification term was first coined in 1960 by sociologist Ruth Glass, in which she explains in her book of essays, London, Aspects of Change, that the working class of London was forcibly invaded by upper and middle class, pushing out existing and original occupiers and changing the whole social character of the district. Now, similarly, in 2019, Princeton historian Dylan Gottlieb published Hoboken is Burning, Yuppies, Arson, and Displacement in a Post-Industrial City. He notes that in the 1980s, Puerto Rican residents were forcibly pushed out of their neighborhoods by professionals moving in, and housing prices skyrocketed. Within this city, this was a declared act of arson. 500 fires were set, 55 died, and over 8,000 were left homeless. Now this brings me to how, as locals are pushed out, inauthentic local narratives are created and cultural erosion is caused. As these local Puerto Ricans moved out of their own neighborhood, they took with them their small businesses, their traditions, their vernacular architecture, and their overall way of life. So next, we need to understand the causes of gentrification, historical racist zoning policy, and the demand for real estate. In 2020, Andrew Lee, a politics writer for Teen Vogue, he explains how, particularly in the Jim Crow era, redlining and racial covenants prevented black families from renting or taking out mortgages in neighborhoods. This created poor, concentrated communities. And then government institutions began removing resources from these communities. Now this leads me to my next point. Poor minority areas become prime targets for property speculators. A profit race takes place within gentrification. Let's look to Charleston, South Carolina, where I'm from. In the historic African-American community of Gadsden Creek, Joe Riley, the previous mayor of Charleston in 2012, created West Edge, a plan to create a biomedical district that is the largest and most expensive that the Charleston Peninsula has ever seen. Now, they plan to fill in Gadsden Creek, which will only benefit the already wealthy, as seen by what's already being built. Caroline luxury apartments, bar gyms, high-dollar restaurants that cater to tourists and not locals. And filling in Gadsden Creek will add 4 more acres for developers to create more commercial spaces. And additionally, because subsidizing and building in on a creek community is expensive, the city is creating a tax incremental financing district that will subsidize the Gadsden Creek district and divert taxpayer dollars, while meanwhile, the Gadsden Creek public housing within the community is already failing. Their plumbing is lacking and their roads are failing. So at the expense of Charleston taxpayers subsidizing on an expensive development on Fieldon Marsh, only West Edge developers will see the enormous profits that come from filling in this community. So how may we instead participate in urban revitalization? Solutions include the use of participatory democracy and creating affordable housing. In 2016 in El Barrio, New York City's East Harlem district, immigrant women created the Movement for Justice. They wanted to do this to fight against Mayor Bill de Blasio's luxury housing rezoning plan. Founded in 2004, they now consist of over 1,000 members and 95 building committees. They seek to fight against abusive landlords, property speculators, multinational corporations, and government institutions that seek to divide them. They do so by creating community dialogue, voting, hosting media interviews, and reaching out with locals. And now, in order to aid these communities, we need to create affordable housing, and we need to keep it. The Center for Disease Control notes that in order to create affordable housing for all incomes, mixed income communities need to be created, zoning policies need to be adopted, and incentives like tax breaks need to be identified. So in conclusion, while gentrification may seem like revitalization of an urban area at first, it is not. It's caused by racist laws and hasty development, and this negative process forces out locals out of their own homes and depletes an area of its identity. But thankfully, it's able to be relieved through community involvement and affordable housing policy. So I challenge you to look within your own community, create relationships, and fight for people instead of a quick profit. Thank you.